Learning to reconnect with your body when it's chronically ill requires proper sequencing. And I don't want to overpromise here about what the right sequencing is because it's different for everybody, but there is a proper sequence. And while that sequencing is different for everybody, there is a structure and frameworks that you can put in place to make sure that you're doing as little harm as possible and even doing good, which are two of our core values as therapists. The goal of trauma work is to help clients return to their bodies in a sense, but it doesn't start there. It's not day one or even month one or sometimes even year one that a client will be able to do this. Because the safety involved in getting back to their body oftentimes requires a lot of systemic change around them. A client doesn't necessarily need to be healthy in their body or have no physical ailments in order to feel safe, but we can't pretend that nothing needs to change externally in order to just simply feel safe in the body. When we move too quickly towards body connection before a client has this safety or language or the therapeutic relationship to help hold that experience, we risk flooding them. When we're sequencing, we ask questions like, what needs to be true before this person can tolerate turning toward their body? For one client, that might mean spending weeks building a sense of felt safety in the relationship before any somatic work begins. It might require lots and lots of observation and simply being able to name what is before they can start to search for what they feel should be. For somebody else, it might mean exploring the relationship that they have with dissociation first, making sure we're not pathologizing that, understanding dissociation as a protector, not really as an obstacle, and really honoring that and not just pretending that we're, accepting of dissociation in order to eventually get them out of dissociation. We have to really know and trust and believe that their dissociation protects them. When we know what it's protecting them from, then we can start to figure out how to help them have protection from that thing in different ways. For example, protection from the pain that's happening in their body could be a medication that actually reduces or gets rid of the pain, although that's not always an option. And it could also be an understanding of that pain or that sensation in their body and help them develop a new and truer understanding of what that pain or sensation actually means for them. Sometimes people have false conceptions about, how achy joints might equal damage being done to their joints. And sometimes that's true and sometimes that's not. And sometimes science and medical understanding can help us get a clear and short answer about that. And sometimes it can't. Sometimes the science isn't there to give us enough of a short answer to say, hey, there's no damage here at all. So we just have to keep reinforcing that and telling yourself you're safe because there's really no damage here. That's just your mind's interpretation of that. Sometimes that is not true. And so the way that we start to develop safety in a body that's dealing with pain, again, sometimes looks like reorganizing what our pain actually means physically, like what damage is being done. And sometimes it's reorganizing what the pain means, like in a more macro level to their whole life. For example, this pain means I can no longer play on the floor with my children. That might come from somebody who has immense amount of joint pain or back pain or POTS or something like that, who when they get down on the floor, the price they pay in their body is more expensive than what they gain from getting on the floor with their children. And they might believe that accommodations, like using tools to help them get down there, or that, playing on the floor is the only way to play with their kids. They might have some beliefs like that we can definitely help them change with the right tools and skills and accommodations and belief frameworks about what they're allowed or not allowed to do and use. I have helped many people start to use mobility aids in their day-to-day life after really feeling like mobility aids were not allowed for them, that they were not disabled enough to need those aids. When somebody finally decides to use a mobility aid, there typically is a moment in time where they are really ashamed of that. But when they start to see that the benefits far outweigh any possible negatives of it, like people judging you or you judging yourself or something like that, typically the stress around using an aid goes way down or completely away. And they start to be able to play with their kids again, or go to outings with their friends, or even stay at work longer if that's, meaningful and important for them. A lot of times we have a really warped view of what it means to accommodate ourselves because of the culture that we live in and how it is so against using aids to help us get further. Our Americans with Disabilities Act back in the 90s made a lot of headway here, but I think we are taking a bit of a regression culturally around using tools to help us manage day-to-day life. And I really hope that the work that every chronic illness therapist is doing is really pushing against that and trying to get us back into a place where we are accepting of adaptive tools and technology to help accommodate us in a way that allows us to do all of the things that we want to do in life. So I want to go back to that question, what needs to be true before this person can tolerate turning toward their body? And you can see how layered this is and how long this work could take by trying to tackle each one of those elements that I've just talked about. There's no correct timeline here because every person is different. Everyone has a different set of beliefs they're working through, with some through lines that many of us do tend to have the same of. But there's different levels of ability that we're dealing with. There's different support systems that we have access to. There's different financial resources that we have access to. There's so much individuality here that we have to be able to stay in it with our clients, be calm and patient, and be able to hold that groundedness with them and for them when they can't yet hold it for themselves. So while there is no one universal protocol that works across the board, there are different frameworks that really aid you as the clinician in helping your client get to that place. And what we're looking for is clients' verbal and nonverbal cues about readiness, and also learning how to ask the right questions to figure out what the obstacles to readiness are without pathologizing that lack of readiness. So even when body reconnection is the goal, getting there safely at the right pace in the right order for each individual client is where the real work is in this space. And that is something that Victoria and I can help you figure out in our 6-week cohort. The reason why it's in a cohort and not just a podcast episode, fair question, is because it is so individual. So just like we have to understand what each client needs and all of the different obstacles that they're dealing with, you as the therapist also have to understand what obstacles you are going through. What pieces are you missing? Somebody might be missing understanding the frameworks of disability justice in order to get through to a client, while another clinician might have all of that in their repertoire already, and they're missing the ability to calm their own nervous system down when they get activated enough to be able to be with a client's activation, especially around a shared experience like chronic illness. So this cohort, we cap it at 20 people, and the reason for that, there's 2 facilitators, 20 people. We find that that number is just enough that you can get individualized attention throughout the 6 weeks and really develop this framework for yourself and your clients that's going to get them to the place that we want to all be. So my hope is that you'll join us. We have 5 spots left as of April 1st, and we start on April 7th. It's our last cohort of 2026. So I really encourage you to join us this month if you can. If you have any questions at all, we are more than happy to answer. So don't hesitate to reach out.